boys and girls. Today I'm going to read Ruby Holler again. I'm going to start reading chapter 21, which is called Lost and Found. But before we start reading, a couple things that I want you to remember. So remember, Florida said that she thought she'd never be a part of a real family when the Hoppers returned her back to the orphanage. And then when she got to Ruby Holler, she was very surprised when Tiller offered to pay her $5 an hour for fixing the boat. And then another one. Florida and Dallas did a favor, Tiller or Sari decided to call it, which was when they hacked a part of the barn and decided to make a window out of it. The next one from last time we talked was the secret that Tiller and Carrie and Sari kept from each other was the money from their Understone funds. They didn't know where each other's was until they decided to go on these trips. All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep reading. Dallas, Florida, Tiller called. They knew we'd be right back after we got our Understone funds, didn't they? Sari said. Where do you suppose they went? Tiller sat down on the porch steps, took out his whittling knife and a piece of wood from his pocket, and shaved slivers from the bark. Maybe they went chasing after a squirrel or something. He kicked Sorry, guys. He kicked at the shavings near his feet. I'm not used to waiting around for people. Makes me itchy. Sari reached into her own pocket and withdrew her whittling knife and a block of wood. She turned the wood round and round in her hands, closing her eyes and feeling it with the tips of her fingers, as her knife moved nimbly with the wood shavings drifted down the steps, mixing in with Tiller's wood chips. Tiller, know what I was thinking about? Buddy. Buddy? Our son Buddy? I know who the ding-dong Buddy is, Tiller said. I just meant, what was it that you were thinking about? Remember when he was, around 12, and he decided that he wanted to be an orphan? Remember? That summer, he just up and decided that he accidentally landed in this family and that he really was an orphan. And didn't he go and live in the barn for a while? Tiller said. Yep, 2 whole months in the barn. Yeah, I'm remembering that now. When I asked him what he was going to eat, he said he'd manage on worms and stuff. Worms, Sari said. I'm still not entirely sure what he did eat. I think the other kids snuck him stuff. I snuck him food from now and then, Tiller admitted. Okay, I admit it, so did I. Left it in a bucket by the barn door. How was it he eventually gave up living in the barn? Tiller. Stop. Stop it. Sorry, guys. How was it he eventually gave up living in the barn? Tiller asked. You remember? We made those getting over being an orphan cookies. Those triple chocolate things. You know, the ones your mom taught you to make. Oh, right. Oh, right. Buddy sure liked chocolate. Try calling them again, Sari said. Dallas, Florida. From the distance came a muffling call. Tiller and Sari pocketed their knives and stood. I know exactly where that's coming from. Over by the bear bush. They found Florida flailing in a patch of briars on the far side of the stream. I'm stuck all to bits, Florida grumbled. Putrid bushes trapped me. By the time they untangled her, they heard Dallas calling from the opposite side of the hill, beyond the tickle violets and picnic tree. Help! Bees! Help! Uh-oh, Sari said. Guess we know where he is. As they all headed back to the cabin, Tiller said, What were you after, anyways? Nothing, Florida said. We were after nothing whatsoever. How come you didn't wait for us? Sari said. We said we'd be right back, didn't we? Dallas was still swatting at the air, waving away bees that had long since vanished. We were just worried, Florida said. Weren't we, Dallas? We were just worried maybe you'd get lost or hurt out here. Lost? Tiller said. Us? Not very likely. We know this place inside and out, backwards and forwards, up and down. But it was nice of you to think of us, Sari said. We aren't used to anybody worrying about what could happen to us old folks. Tiller and Sari sat on the porch swing. In the distance, Dallas and Florida were digging along the creek bank. We shouldn't have mentioned our Understone funds in front of those kids, Tiller said. Why not? Tiller rubbed his jaw. Just don't think it's a good idea, those kids knowing where we've got money buried out there. You're not saying they'd steal it, are you? Don't exactly know what I'm saying. Just think it's a little too much temptation for kids who have so little. Dallas dug in the muddy creek bank. You almost got us in a lot of trouble, Florida, Dallas said. I did not. What are you talking about? Dallas pulled a long red worm from the soil. That idea of yours to follow them and find out where the money was. Guys, I'm so sorry that Mr. Besnack and Olivia are being goofy tonight. That wasn't my idea. That was your idea, Florida said. Was not. Was too. Florida tossed a muddy stone at Dallas. I was just concerned about their safety. That's all. Me too, Dallas said, flinging his worm at her. Hey, cut that out. Florida cupped the worm and set it back in the mud. How much money do you think they've got out there, though? No idea. Probably a zillion, bazillion dollars. Florida waded out into the water, stepping from stone to stone across the creek. She thought about touching the Hopper's money and how mad Mr. Hopper had gotten, and how mad she got when Mr. Hopper pulled the jar of quarters away from Dallas and yelled at him. Florida stepped across the stones in the creek and said, Dallas, money is trouble. I don't want to know where their money is. I never, never, ever want to know where it is. Hey, Dallas said, I've got an idea. Let's bury our money too. What? Like understones? You mean? Yeah, it'd be so cool, like buried treasure, our own buried treasure. But we're leaving pretty soon, aren't we? Ah, sure, Dallas said. But in the meantime, let's bury the money, okay? Whatever you say, bossy Dallas. Chapter 22, A Trip to Boxton. Dallas and Florida had turned to Boxton several times with Tiller and Sari, and each time the twins had made it clear that they did not want to go near the faded yellow home leaning toward the railroad tracks. Don't you want to visit your friends there? Sari would ask. The ones we know? They're probably gone already, Florida said. Kids go in and out of there that fast. Tiller asked. Yep, like a revolving door, Dallas said. And how long have you two been there? Sari asked. Do you mind if I ask you that? What's to mind? Florida said. We've been there longer than anybody. We've been there a zillion years. Our revolving door sweeps us right back in there, Dallas said. Oh, Sari said. Yep, we're trouble. Double trouble, Florida said. You know what our son Buddy used to call himself? Mr. Trouble. He wasn't any more trouble than any of the other kids, but one summer he got it in his head that he couldn't do anything right, she said. As they drove out of the holler, Sari told them the story of how Buddy had decided that he was an orphan and had lived in the barn one whole summer until Tiller and Sari made the getting over being orphan triple chocolate cookies. Why did you tell us that story? Florida asked. I don't know. Just popped into my head. You know what? I just realized something. Me and Tiller are orphans too, she said. You are not, Dallas said. Technically, yes, we are, Sari said. Our parents are no longer living. It's not the same thing, Florida said. Sari patted Florida's hand. Yeah, you're right, Florida. That was a silly thing for me to say, and I'm sorry my brain popped it out of my mouth. Hey, Florida said, you know those triple chocolate cookies you made yesterday? Were those by any chance getting over being an orphan cookies? Sarah nudged Tiller. Tiller, is that the recipe you used? Can't rightly say for sure, Tiller said. Enough of this chatter. Here's Boxton. Let's get our plans straight. Sari said, I know you don't want to hear this, but we really should make a stop to see Mr. and Mrs. Don't say it, Florida said. Don't you say that name. We're not going. Don't you go either. That's right, Dallas said. If we set foot in there, they'll throw us in those cobwebby rooms and lock the doors. Oh, now, Sari said, I do think you might be exaggerating a mite. No way, Florida said. I'll jump out of this truck right now if you say we're going back there. Okay, Sari said. You don't have to go. Don't worry. We'll meet up at Grace's diner. How's that? While the others did their errands, Sari slipped around the back of the courthouse and down the alley, which was bordered on one side by railroad tracks, and on the other side by a sprawling field dotted with junk cars and shacks. She could see the tilting Boxing Creek home ahead. The alley was littered with crumbled papers and hubcaps. with old rubber tires and empty pop cans, and Sari quickened her pace, feeling a little uneasy about this unfamiliar place. Dallas and Florida were standing on the sidewalk outside Grace's diner when the door opened, and out shuffled Mr. Trippett. Well, 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 he said. Double trouble twins. Dallas and Florida backed away. Donut crumbs clung to the front of Mr. Trippett's shimmery blue shirt. Where are those people? That old couple? They're not bringing you back, are they? Florida took another 2 steps backwards. No, they're not bringing us back. They're getting stuff for our trips. Oh, Mr. Trippett glanced across the street at the red brick bank standing at the corner. They in there getting piles of money? At that bank? Florida said. No way. They don't need banks. They don't? Mr. Trippett picked a crumb off his shirt and popped it into his mouth. It was my distinct understanding that those two had piles of money. Piles of it. Collectors pay a lot of money for those little carvings that they make. But they don't need to keep their money at any bank, Florida said. They've got understone funds. Yeah, Dallas said. They've got their own private banks in the holler, buried under stones. Is that right? Mr. Tripp would say. How clever. Yep, and me and Dallas have our own understone funds too, Florida said. How charming, Mr. Tripp had said, glancing at his watch. Well, and when is it you're all heading out on your trips? Right soon, Florida said. Mr. Tripp had looked at the sky. Very good indeed. Well, I wish you all well. Then he flicked the rest of the crumbs off his shirt. Must be off, and on down the sidewalk he scurried. What's he so happy about? Dallas asked. He got rid of us, that's what, Florida said. Sari made her way through the littered alley and approached the Boxton Creek home from the back. As she was rounding the side, she heard Mrs. Trippett's voice. Stop that this instant, Mrs. Trippett commanded. Hush! Sari heard a baby cry and saw Mrs. Trippett leaning over a baby carriage, her face bent down close to the crying baby. Stop that, Mrs. Trippett repeated. Is that a baby you're scolding? Sari said. Mrs. Trippett straightened quickly and turned to Sari. This baby is so fussy, she said, just like those twins were. Sari nodded. Well, babies can be that way. Mrs. Trippett looked annoyed. You make it sound normal. Doesn't feel normal to me. Drives me crazy. Mrs. Trippett glanced around the side of the house. Are you bringing those twins back? No, not yet. Your husband asked me to pick up Dallas's passport here, she said. Oh, well then go inside. Morgan will find it for you. Mr. T isn't here, said Mrs. Trippett. She jingled the buggy. Aren't you supposed to leave some money? Am I? Sari asked. Yes, for the passport and all the trouble that he had to go through. Was it so very much trouble? She asked. Yes, Mrs. Trippett said. I believe you owe him $300. $300? Really? My passport was much, much less than that. The rest is for all the trouble, Mrs. Trippett said, and for transportation and documents and such. As Sari turned to go inside, Mrs. Trippett said, The twins. How are they? They're fine, Sari said. No trouble at all. I'm going to go ahead and stop there for today. I will read chapter 23 next time. All right, boys and girls, have a good day. Bye.